first. Alright, so I've done some progress here with getting a gauge ready. I'm installing another gauge. I had the car up, I had to take the wheel off to get to the fender liner here, do some wiring, add a boost gauge sensor, and then wideband. So I had the AOS out. AOS is up there, and the reason why we're doing that is because of this. I'm installing this gauge, which is from Pro Sport. It's a OLED boost and AFR gauge, but it's not. This video is not about that. It's mainly about this right here. We've got the SMY Modular Gauge Pod assembly. I think that's what it's called. We got it off of a group buy, which was maybe a month ago or so, and it was discounted. Okay, so here's the main body. It's molded plastic ABS, whatever it is. It's kind of close to what the stock one is. You've got a channel right here, and then you've got a screw hole here. We're using to match it up, and this here, and the screw holes right there. So this is what takes the load of all the gauges. I'm gonna snap it right in. You're gonna take this screw, included screw, and then thread it through there. Now, if you buy the gauge alone, it'll come with 2 caps for each end here. All right. And then it comes with, I want to say, a rubber band for whatever gauge you need to use. That's 52 millimeter or 2 1/16. And you got the additional or supplemental pods, which come with just a rubber band. In order to make this work, you take out the cap here, and these just slide right on. It's like precision made, I guess you can say. They're molded, and yeah, put the next one on, however many you want. Once you reach the end, put the cap on. I don't want to put it on because they're hard to come off once I get it on there. So just for an example, oh, excuse me. Then anyway, you can add up to 4 total, like this. If I can find, there we go. Just like that. That's the array that you can max out. You can't put the 4th gauge up here because it'll hit the windshield, and I've asked the man himself. This is the way to do it. It's the only way. So you can see, sorry, the wheel's crooked. I dropped it off the jacks with the wheel in free, so it's like this. But anyway, I've installed this back in 2015. I got oil pressure and oil temperature. It's been doing very good. I love where they're at. However, when I'm turning kind of like this, I can't see oil pressure. I can't see a dip. I mean, although it doesn't dip, but I'd like to see that. So that's why I'm installing that gauge pod assembly up here. I might be taking this off and putting the stock one back in. Also for this guy here, fuel pressure, which I recently installed. I also want to use a vent because it's been hot lately, and having this here blocks a lot of the airflow. So I want that to be functional again, and that's why I've got that set up. So I'm gonna get rid of this guy and perhaps use the SMY AP3 holder here. So I may retain this. I might put the AFR gauge here, and then put the fuel, oil pressure, oil temp here where I can see it. Now the reason why is when you are driving, whether you're turning or driving straight, you want to keep tabs on those parameters. And what I'm saying is because when you have a wideband gauge here and your access port, a lot of times you're paying attention to your boost and AFRs when you're actually on the throttle, going straight, powering out of a corner. Oil pressure, oil temperature, especially mainly oil pressure. I want to see my oil pressure at all times when I'm turning, you know, high G's and whatnot. Although I don't go to the track, but there are some instances where I am going pretty fast around the corner. I want to make sure that my pressure is maintained at all times. So that's my reason. I think I'm gonna go this way. I might keep this, put my access port here, put my wideband here, put this back to stock, take these 3 gauges, put them up here, and yeah, Now another point to consider is that your wiring has to reach your furthest gauge pod. So being that my gauges are here and then I'm moving in to this upper location, it'll be no problem. I have Pro Sport gauges. I've wired this as a master. If you look behind the premium type gauges, they have a master and slave connection where you don't have to splice one gauge to another. You can just go ahead and daisy chain them all and you don't have to use a controller. So that's the easy part about using these gauges. I don't know how other gauges are, but these gauges have never failed me. They saved me twice, especially this guy right here. So since we're using this location, I'm gonna have to take this off. To take off the stock one, all you gotta do is pry it out. The stock vent has hooks similar to this, so all you gotta do is pull it out and straight up. Don't worry, you won't break it. Alright, so I popped off the AP Guys mount. Right here, you can see it's 3D printed. A little different from OEM. Here is the new one, very similar. However, it's a little darker in color, but nobody will notice it because it's on that side. Alright, back on the driver's side, you can see that there's the vent or the duct. Here's the defroster right here, and excuse me, once I clip it in there, it's gonna provide a direct path for air coming in. Now, being that the duct goes straight in, I'm gonna have to cut a hole right here on the duct, or I'm not sure where, perhaps here, maybe. Tells you to drill a quarter size hole. Here would be a little far, so I want to say maybe I'll figure it out. But anyway, you gotta drill a hole for wires to run up. Alright, back at the bench. Here's the duct side of the vent. Here's the gauge pod. And then we're gonna put it in there and kind of see where the wires need to go up on or up through. Looks like here maybe, and then it goes all the way up here, because here's where the wires enter. And you're gonna fish all those wires with however many gauges you use, 3, 4, yeah. So I'm gonna try and find out where to drill it and then catch up from there. Alright, we're back. Now looking down here, all I did was notch it. I couldn't fit my drill down there. However, I did drill this. On the camera, it looks pretty small as far as the hole goes, but it does. I want to say it's the size of, shit, my thumb's pretty huge, between a dime and a nickel. I could go more on that, but I just wanted to gauge the size of it. And it looks like I could see through there, so I think that'll work. So what you want to do is you want to pull your gauges out, or set up your wires. If you were to put new gauges in, fish them all through here. So I'm going to be taking all this out. Like I said, this is not a gauge hookup video. This is this guy's video right here. Alright, quick update because I'm running out of light real quick. You have to take out this, or you don't have to, but I suggest you take this out, that way you can see where your wires go. But I have removed the SMY, where is that shit at? Anyway, I removed the gauges from here, and now rerouted the wires. I had to extend the oil pressure as well as the initial power from the fuse box. And here we have the fuel pressure gauge, main power with the daisy, as well as the signal from the pressure sensor. I've got the daisy from the fuel pressure going to the oil pressure with the oil pressure sensor right here. And then this is the daisy going to the oil temperature, and that's the last, that's the end of the daisy chain right there. So there's only 2 wires. So now I have to get the gauge pod. As a matter of fact, I gotta get this guy placed on there, fish the wires through this little hole, and then fish it up to this guy somehow and get it mounted before snaking the wires out from down below to this way, since I'm going towards the center of the car. So I'm going to block this guy off. I'm not going to use this. The wideband is going to go back here, and then the access port is going to go here, like I mentioned. So it's going to be tricky. I want to say, I guess I'm going to start putting this guy on and then routing all the wires to here because it's going to go through here anyway. And then the next gauge pod is going to be, I'm going to do the same thing, attach it or route it all the way through, snake it through before attaching it, and then falling onto the next one until the very end. Alright, so I'm still working. As you can see, light isn't in our favor right now. So I am at the point where I'm installing the pods. I've got the wires hooked up right here. So since these are daisy chained together right here, here's all the daisy chains. I'm gonna set up, kids out there. Here's oil temp, here's oil pressure, and here's fuel pressure with main power, and then I'll add the daisy chains as I go along, installing the gauges from outside. Okay, we're back. So this is the last shot you'll see before I plop them right in. There we got the daisy chains installed already. And we got that's temp here. This is pressure. We've got both power going to and from with the sensor wire, and then we've got the main power on the back going to the daisy chain to this this gauge, this oil pressure gauge, and then fuel pressure sensor, and that's it. So I'm gonna pop them all in, and maybe by tomorrow you'll see it running. I gotta put everything back in and also put this guy back in with the wideband gauge. But like I said, this is the highlight of the video, so tomorrow I'll show you tomorrow. There's better light. All right, good morning. It's the next day, so it's finally done. I've got it all mounted up. I can tell you right now, there is a little flex, but you won't know until you actually push it down. You can put a sunshade on there. It's gonna kind of hit it a little bit. You'll see it kind of bow down a little bit, but for the most part, it's solid. You'll see it's flex because the dash does flex if you move it, but overall it does stay put. I like the fact that it looks stock. You know, it's not 3D printed. There was that other gauge pod brand, Block 8 head or Blockhead, which was offered a couple years ago. They no longer make those, and if they are available, they're super expensive. But this is a better option because being that I was going to add this gauge, I had no other options than to mount this this gauge using this Autometer universal pod, which requires you to drill. And I as much as possible, I want to stay away from drilling. But you know, the options were putting it here. It's really intrusive of looking at the gauge pod or the gauge cluster, and I don't want to drill holes in my interior for something that's not going to be permanent, and you know, it's susceptible probably to rattling if I drive over hard roads, hard surfaces. I was also glad that I retained the SMY gauge cluster pod because I could retain the access port and keep it nearer because I have these harnesses, and once I'm strapped in, I can't reach here. I mean, it's a stretch, but you know, I'll get injured if anything. I'll pull a muscle, but right here it's within arm's reach. If I was still using the AP Guys mount, 3D printed one, which is all the way over here. So imagine if I'm strapped down, I can't even touch it. I have to unbuckle my straps. You know, it's totally unsafe. And then I gotta reach forward and, you know, change menus and whatnot. But that's gonna be for sale soon. But yeah, so for this gauge pod here, it was angled slightly upward, so it was kind of off. Even though it was for fuel pressure, right here, it kind of displayed itself at a weird angle to where, like, I'm looking at the ticks on the gauge, and it's, you know, it's not really a direct view is what it is now. So this is perfect for my driving position. My seat's a little lower, so if you're looking at with my height, if I'm driving, this is how low or how high it is. And it's not really intrusive of my view. Maybe let me adjust. Yeah, I'm like right here. If I had the stock seats, I'll be like up here. which is like driving a bus, but I like that my seats are lower, more level with the horizon, and you know, it's a better driving position, and that I can see everything and I can reach everything, reach my access port. And then the color scheme of the wideband gauge and the access port gauge match. They're like a whitish bluish tint. So if I were to turn it on now, let me show you how it looks. There we go. So I like the consistency of all three gauges matching here, and they also match the OEM cluster. I got oil pressure screaming at me because I need that. I leave all my beeps on just to warn me of any dangers, I guess. But let me go ahead and start it up. Here we go. Wait for the access port to boot up. But also, I kept the access port here. I know it's blocking the cooling gauge right there. It's totally useless. I just leave my coolant temp here. You got intake, coolant, dam feedback, short-term fuel trims, long-term fuel trims, all within my view as I'm driving. This is how it looks. So with oil pressure, fuel pressure, oil temp, I can see all that while I'm driving, especially like I said, when I'm taking corners. Oil pressure is one of the main gauges that I need to see, and being that it used to be here, I make a right turn, I can't even see it, and I gotta peek over, and it's pretty dangerous. I gotta focus on where I'm driving. So yeah, very driver oriented gauges. They're perfect, and you know, thanks to Yannick Mosti at SMY Performance, they make such awesome and very innovative you know, gauge solutions. So if you guys should pick some up, go ahead and order some on their site right now. You guys missed the group buy. This is what I got it through. Hopefully this is enough for you guys to know how to put it in. I know I kind of rushed it because the light was disappearing and I needed that vehicle to come in. Power was off, everything. I had to get it done and roll the car in. But if you guys like what you see, like, share, subscribe. See you guys later.